Hello and welcome to the video. I'm Jimmy the Mower and today I'm going to be servicing a Kubota V1505 engine in my Ransomes Parkway 3. So, I've been really looking forward to this video. I service this mower a couple of times a year and I really just wanted to show you how I can do it and how you can do it as well if you're that way inclined. So what we've got here's a few things. We've got a diesel filter, there's actually two of those, an inline filter and a standard diesel filter there. We've got an oil filter over here, that goes on over that side, and we've got a great big air filter, they sit on the top. We've got 5 litres of oil. It takes about 6.5, but our oil comes in huge drums, so we just decant it into smaller bottles to pour in. We've got the all-important safety, operation and maintenance manual. That gives you a rough idea of what you've got to do, but like a lot of people, you like to see it being done and you can follow along. Few tools. Now there'll probably be more than this as we go through it all. You can never remember everything you need, but there's some grips for getting the oil filter and fuel filter off. We've got a larger socket there for getting the sump plug out the bottom. We've got a smaller socket and ratchet there for getting bits and pieces off the Jubilee clips. We've got a screwdriver for the same sort of thing, some little grips, some pliers and probably a rag to wipe up the mess and a bucket to catch the oil in. That's always important. So the first thing we do then is remove the oil from the engine. We drop that out by undoing the sump plug underneath here. It's a 22mm socket. You put that on and you might have to give it a bit of welly because they do them up really tight. So just, there you go, that's gone. And then we undo that. And now as we undo it, I'll drop the plug into the bucket and all the oil will drain out into there and then we'll fish the plug out later. I don't try and pull it out the way because you're just going to get oil all over your arm and everywhere else. So just let it drop and let it flow. There we go, that's coming out now. Now as I said before, we needed a rag. I need to jump up and quickly wipe my hands. So while the engine oil is steadily flowing out, we can move into the engine bay itself now. But before we do that, we always disconnect the battery. There's a lot of electrics around in there, and when we're messing around with screwdrivers, spanners, whatever, we don't want to touch a live to an earth somewhere along and cause a spark and blow a fuse or cause even more damage. So what we'll do, we'll lift the seat up now and then we can disconnect the battery and then we can carry on working on the engine bay. Right, so that's all done. Now we'll move back to the engine bay. In the engine bay here, we've got the oil coming out, so we'll take off the oil filler cap. And that just allows a bit better airflow through the system and allows it to drain a bit quicker. So the oil filler cap's up and out the way, so we've got free flowing oil going straight out and into our bucket at the bottom. We can leave that going, leave it as long as you can, do the rest of the service while that oil's draining out and you'll know that you've got as much out of there as you can. So while that's doing, the easiest thing to move on to next is the air filter. Now I'll give my hands a quick wipe because when we're changing the air filter over, we want this to be as clean as possible. So with the air filter, we've got 2 clips either side. We just undo these clips here and here and we take this end off, right? Look at the dust in there. Now we service our machines on a regular basis and these air filters are not very old at all, but there's a lot of dust. We can get a big cloud out of there. You know, we work in hot, dusty conditions, running an engine all day long. It's filthy, absolutely filthy, but they do their job because on the inside, in there, you'll see it's pure white. Absolutely clean as a whistle, and that's because everything is trapped in the outside, and the reason why that is because we change these filters on a regular basis to make sure they're working as good as they can be. Now I'll have a little look in there. There's not a lot of dust or anything, so we can just literally change one over for the other. Now as a little tip for you, we've got a genuine Ransomes filter here. All the part numbers will be in the description. We've got a genuine Ransomes filter. With a genuine Ransomes filter, when you look at it, there is a slight smear of grease around the inside in there. I'm just going to wipe my hands again because they're dusty from removing that old one. So there's a slight smear of grease, and what that does is form an airtight seal around the inside of the filter. So any air that's sucked in comes through the paper element and then into the engine. It doesn't get sucked around there where it can drag in dust particles and dirt particles. It has to come through and be filtered. So if you buy a non-genuine one and when you get it there isn't a smear of grease on there, make sure you put some on, because it really can save you a lot of time and hassle. So now all we do for this is easy. You just fit it into the middle, twist it on, and that's it, fitted. Easy as that. Now with this here, we'll just give it a bit of a wipe out. I'll get a damp cloth and rub it round so we can get all the residue out. So that's all clean then and dust free. Well, on the inside anyway. When you put this back on, just a word of caution, it says top on there, and that's to go on the top piece here. Now this will fit on all the way around. There's no special places for the clips to go, they just clip on that rim. But we've got a little valve at the bottom there. Now when the engine's running and it's sucking in air, this valve locks tight and it won't allow any air through. However, if there's any rain or anything or moisture build up in there, there's a mouth on there, and when the engine's sat and turned off, all the water can drain out so you don't get any moisture build up and damage your filter. So remember, when you put this back on, always put the arrows to the top, and it should say top on there, and it will just clip on, as easy as that. There you go, air filter done. You can clean these filters out. Look at this, you can put a hose inside and clean them from the inside out. However, a couple of times a season, we change them anyway. They're not a lot of money, and really it does prolong the life of your machine if you can put a new one in as often as possible. So now we're going to look at the fuel system and changing the fuel filters. There's actually two fuel filters to change. One at the top, which is a pre-filter, and then the main filter underneath. The fuel system works like normal diesel systems really. We've got a large tank here, we've got a little pump on the top, and the pump, 12 volt pump, pumps the diesel through, sucks it up through the first inline fuel filter, which is this one. So when we change this, we have to make sure that we put it the correct way round. So you follow the fuel line system and see which way it's going, and on here there's a small arrow. You might not be able to pick it up there on the camera. There's a small arrow there, so the fuel comes in through this side and out through that side. So we put that, the tank, then into there, out of there and up to the fuel pump, and that stops really any sediment and bits and pieces getting through to the fuel pump itself and blocking it up. Then after the fuel pump, the line continues round and drops down into the main fuel filter, and with this one the diesel comes in, is forced out through the holes and into the diesel system itself. So we've got two filters in there, so it's guaranteed really clean diesel. There's a little water trap on the bottom of these as well, so if you ever have any problem with water in your diesel or anything like that, you can undo this and release the water from there. However, with these tanks, they're well sealed on top. We've never had a problem with any water ingress. Right, so to take these off, let's have a little look, see if we can find my stuff on the side. We need to undo the two Jubilee clips either side of this little filter first. So you can either use a screwdriver to undo them, or if I can find it on here, we've got a little 7mm socket and ratchet set. So first one I'll get off is that. So there's the inline filter off then, right? There it is. We've got a bucket here and we just empty the bit of diesel out. We've got another bucket under there as well next to the oil to catch any stray diesel. Now we can look at these side by side and you can see in there, I'm sure, that that is a lot darker than this one is. And that's not just due to it being wet with diesel. There's a lot of sediment in the bottom. I'm going to shake it out into the tub and hopefully we get a close-up of the photograph and the little bits and pieces that we've got in there. It shows you how important the pre-filter is. We are working out in fields all the time, hot and dusty conditions. You can see from the machine, you know, this isn't just something that's done in a pristine workshop with a brand new machine. This is an actual working machine that's out there doing lots of hours every week. So we've got most of the diesel out of there. there's sediment in the bottom, there's all sorts of stuff. So we'll drop that in there, then that's that one done. Now with this, all we have to do is put it back exactly where the old one was. And remember, we've got to get the arrows the right way round so we've got the fuel flow. So I'll just pop that back on, do up the Jubilee clips, and then we can move on to the next filter. Now we're moving on to the main filter. Now with the main filter, you need a pair of grips like this to get it off. There's different ones you can use, some with a chain, some with like a rubber strap. I prefer these grips, you can just really get some good purchase on there. But before we take it off, what we'll do is we'll undo the drain on the bottom of it there, and we'll drain the diesel out of the filter so it will drop down onto the floor. Put the bucket underneath there and we'll catch that diesel, and then it should be easier to get off as well without causing a vacuum. So that's the pressure released and it's just slowly dripping out now. So while that's dripping out, should be able to grip it and turn it round and hopefully remove it. Don't know if you can pick that up on the camera, but as I'm starting to undo it, it's getting a bit, there's a bit of airflow going through, and you can hear more and more diesel running out. Try and catch it if I can, without dropping it. There's a diesel filter. We just get that in the bucket underneath. Right, that's that done and out of the way. Time for another clean up again. So then, with the old filter off, it's time to put the new filter on. Make sure when you do it, right, you make sure this drain plug is out at maximum, because if you start to mess around with it screwed in, it will let some fluid through. What we have to do is put some diesel in here. Now, I've already put a little bit in to pre-soak the filter. So I'll try and add a little bit more. I'm using red diesel here so you can see it clearly. And put red diesel in and we fill it up. Now, the reason why we fill these up with diesel is to make sure we don't get an airlock. You always get an airlock. I've done this so many times with so many different engines, you will always get an airlock. There's a bleed screw on the top and we can bleed the air through, but the more diesel we can get in here, the easier we'll make things for ourselves. So we've poured some in, and then on the top we've got a rubber seal, and on that rubber seal we put a light misting of oil round on there, and the light misting of oil, we use 3-in-1 oil just on there and rub it round, and that just forms a seal. When we took this filter off, it was very hard to wrench it off, because when this is screwed up, it tends to cause a vacuum on there. So you put it on tight, you screw it up as tight as you can by hand, and that's it. You don't need to use these on there because you'll damage the filter. So you do it by hand and you tighten it up as much as you can, and that should be enough. But you have to make sure that when you've tightened it up, that you check the machine after every 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, because that's the most important time. The amount of people I've seen do services on machines, and within the first hour, they haven't checked it over, they've lost some fluid from somewhere and they've damaged the engine. So it's really important. Now, I'll just put a bit more diesel in here. The more we can get in, the more time we save ourselves in the end, and the easier it is to keep the mower running. So, right, that's about as full as it can get. The screw just screws straight into the middle there. When you screw it on, that's where it screws in. You just leave that a second and it will just go down as it starts to absorb into the filter. It just lowers itself down. That's it, should be enough. And now I can just put this down and screw it back on. We'll just give it a wipe over just to make sure that I haven't got any residue around the edge and it's not too hard to screw on and my hand's not slipping round. Right, now get this in and try and spill less diesel putting it in than I did getting it out. And now we'll be on to a winner then. Well then, that's the last of the messy parts done. We've got 2 brand new filters on there, and when we start the engine up for the first time and run it through, we might get a little bit of an airlock. I say might, I think we nearly always get an airlock. There's a bleed screw on the top. You just undo that slightly and you just keep turning it over and turning it over and turning it over, and once the diesel starts to come out of that bleed screw, we know that that filter's full up to the top, and we can tighten it up to stop any more air getting into the system, and then run it through. And once it's been running for a couple of minutes, everything will be fine. But like I said before, and I will say it again, once you've been running it for 10 minutes, you need to stop everything and you need to check. You need to check the oil level, you need to check the all the connections that we undid and redid, the fuel filters, the fuel lines, etc., to make sure everything is as it should be, because we don't want to lose any fluids, and the hour after the service is the most critical time for checking those. So that's done then. So now we can go round, we can take the oil filter off, put a new oil filter on, put the sump plug back in, that's important, and then we can fill it back up with oil. So now we're on to the all important oil filter. We've got the oil filler cap off, we've got the sump plug out, so it should be quite easy to turn off. There's no vacuum there, or spin off I should say. There's no vacuum there. Now we'll use these to grip it and do it. Normally it's lefty loosey, righty tighty, and it's no different with this. So I'll get the grips on first. And luckily with these you don't have to move any pipes or anything out of the way. Oh, that's it. It's starting to move. Move it around a little bit. Hopefully be able to get my hand in there now and spin it off. Now, as I spin this off, there'll be some oil come out because there's always oil left in the filter. Hopefully it should drop in the bucket below and I'll be able to catch the filter. If not, the filter will drop in and I'll have to fish it out and show you. Getting near the end now. Oh, that's it, I've caught it. I've caught it, there we go. Right, you can see how dark it is on there. That's old oil, that's, you know, been around the engine a lot of time. It needs changing. There's still a lot of oil in that filter, so we'll put that filter in the bucket out the way. And then we've got our new filter here. And now with the new filter, we can put some oil on the top, again, to form a vacuum, but we won't use the old oil. We'll just use some new 3-in-1 oil, I think. And we'll pop some of this on. Pop it round the edge. Now, unlike the diesel filter, we can't actually fill this up with oil. If it was screwed on like this, it'd be easy. We fill it with oil and it caused no problem at all. However, they're screwed on their side. They're forced in and they're forced on their side. So we can't fill it with oil because as I turn it over, it'll all drain back out. So put this on dry, but we have to make a mental note of that when we're filling it up. And then we start running the engine, because after we've run it for a while and it's pumped through the filter, then there will be some oil gone into there and drop the level down, so we need to top it up. Right, I'll just screw this back on. Should be easy. Now, like I said, with these grips, we use these to take them off, but when we put them on, we only tighten them up by hand. We don't use any mechanical means. I suppose if you've got one of those, the filter grips made with a rubber, you could probably use that. That's easy to start. Once that's started, you spin it round by hand. But we've never had any problem really. We just tighten them up by hand, and as soon as they're tight or fairly tight, give it an extra twist. Check it after half an hour or so just to make sure everything's okay. Right, I've got a bit of rag here. Clean my hands off, grab it with a rag, twist it round again, and that's about as tight as I can get it, I think. I'll just make sure. Yeah, I can't get any tighter than that. And that seal does its job. The seal sits proud on the top, so when you tighten it up, it squashes that seal down and it does what it should do on there. So it's always best practice just to tighten it up like that. Right, that's it then. We better fish around in the bucket underneath, get down there, fish around, get the sump plug out, and we can put that back in place, and then we can fill it back up with oil. We've decanted the oil out of the bucket back into a bottle, and we use that in our oil burner to keep the workshop warm in winter. We salvaged the sump plug out the bottom of there, and we gave it a bit of a clean up. As you can see, it's nice and shiny, and put a little bit of thin oil around there just to make it easy to go in on the threads. Now, once that's in on the bottom, we've got the oil filter on, we can fill the engine back up with oil. However, this isn't your standard V1505 engine. Mine's got a turbo fitted on the top, which is this unit here. So what we need to do is undo this pipe, move it out of the way, and we can have access to the oil filler in there. So we'll put the oil filler cap back on so we don't get any dust or debris in there while we take the hose off. And then, while that's in there, we can just take the hose off the top, if I can find my screwdriver anywhere. There it is. So take this hose off the top. I'm hoping there shouldn't be any dust in this hose, or else the air filter hasn't done its job, but there's certainly dust all over it because we've got a really dusty engine. Yeah, that's it, that's all fine. So that's there. In fact, can we get through? Yeah, we can get a funnel through to there, that's no problem. We can take this off now, we can get the funnel through and we can start to fill it up with some oil. But make sure you put this in first, please. I have seen it done before, and between you and me, I have done it myself once, started filling up with oil without putting this in the bottom. You end up with a very messy floor. Right then, final stages of the service. We've got the sump plug back in, that's screwed up nice and tight. You can torque those up. Whatever you do, don't over tighten them. Tighten them up, give them a little bit, and then get your torque wrench out and torque them up properly. You don't want to put too much pressure on them because you crack the sump and you're in a whole world of trouble. So just nip them up and then just torque them up properly as you're supposed to do. Now in here goes 1030 oil. Our oil comes in huge drums, so we just get the oil out of the drums and into these bottles here, and then it makes it easier to go in. It's 6.5 litres of oil in the system. However, you're not going to get all the oil out of the system. So what I suggest is you put 5 litres in first or thereabouts and see how it's looking. We'll check it on the dipstick, and then after that we can top it up and then top it up again. Obviously once you've started it and it's run around the system, you're filling up the oil filter. You're not filling up the fuel filter, that would be a terrible thing to do. You're filling up the oil filter. So you fill up the oil filter with it as it's running round, and once it's circulating and all going round, we know then we can test it and we can do it and top it back up if needs be. When we go out mowing with this tomorrow, we've done our mowing for today, you can see we've brought it in from outside and we've serviced it. We're going to go out tomorrow, we'll take with us some oil in a small bottle and we can just top that up if needs be while we're out and about in the field. Right, I'll pour some of this in and we'll see how we get on. I've put the funnel in there, as I say, it's a turbo model, so it's slightly different. Took that line off and hopefully this should go in. That's great. And then slow and steady. And you can see the difference in oil with this, can't you? It's like a nice golden colour as it's going in, and it was quite black when we took it out of the oil filter. I think that's about as much out of that bottle as we can get. Right, I'll move on to the other one. We've put about 6 litres in there so far, so if we just have a look at the dipstick down here, we'll clean that off. Now, the thing is, you saw how dirty the oil was when it came out, and you saw the lovely clean oil we put in, but like I said, you never get rid of all the oil out of there, so we expect a bit of residue on this when we dip it, and we'll see. Now, we need to be between, let's have a look, we need to be between the maximum mark there and the minimum mark there, and really we could do with being pretty much towards the maximum because we know that we've got to run it first to get it through the filter. So if we fill it up to max, and then that should be it for today. We've done what we need to do. We'll leave it to settle overnight, and then tomorrow we can top it up if need be. So just make sure that we're there, and I'll tell you what, we're about 2 mil off, I think, so I'm happy with that. I'm really happy with that. So we'll put that back in, make sure that fits in there, and when you push these in, make sure they form a seal, because else you'll get some engine oil leaking out of there. Now we'll take this out, give that a quick clean off. So that's that out the way, that's that done. Then we can put our plug back in on the top, the oil filler cap. That just screws in, just a normal thread. Easier said than done, eh, when you're working, leaning over a mower. Put that back on. Right, so that's on and that's that done. And then we can just put this hose back on here, tighten that up, and Bob's your uncle. We've serviced the mower. Well, that's it then. A good job well done. We've changed both the diesel filters, we've changed the oil and the oil filter and the air filter, and now the air filter sits on top and is really accessible. There's no excuse not to change this several times in a season. It will save you money in the long run. It really does pay dividends. All we have to do now is reconnect the battery, drop the seat down, and we're ready to go off mowing tomorrow. I hope you found this video fun and informative, entertaining as well maybe. If there's anything you'd like to say, just pop it in the comments section below. If you'd like to find out more, you can go on the Ransomes website. It's got the list of all the manuals, their service manuals and parts manuals, and it's all free for you to download, so please do take a look. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Jimmy the Mower. I'll catch you on the next one.